I'll turn it over to any of the.
I'll take the MIDA question. Thank you for that question, because there is a lot of misunderstanding about MIDA. MIDA was just not formed a couple of years ago. I was not in the legislature when MIDA was formed. It was actually run by a senator by the name of Senator Kilpack, the neighboring legislation. It was actually passed, I think, in the 2007 legislative session. And the reason it was formed is very complicated, but I'll try to tell you why. But I would think I was appointed by, wasn't the legislature, I think I was appointed by Governor Huntsman to serve on the MIDA board. But back in the day, and it's ancient history to a lot of you, but Hill Air Force Base was on the list to be closed. There was a BRAC closure going on, there was a BRAC process, and there are multiple bases on the potential closure list for bases around the country. We actually lost a base in Utah, the Ogden Defense Depot, and that's now the business park where Ogden is. But Hill was considered for closure. And there was a lot of concern about the validity of Hill. We do brakes and struts, and we have, at the time, F-16s, and we had, it's actually a logistics center, but they wanted to make sure Hill had viability. And then the other reason is because at Hill Air Force Base, they were still working in the old, they were barracks, warehouses, and they converted those warehouses into office space. The base itself, the federal government wasn't going to fund the new office space. So they decided to do something innovative, and it's something that is, I think, extremely innovative, is the ground on Hill Air Force Base has zero tax basis. We don't pay taxes, the federal government doesn't pay taxes. So they said, we've got an idea. We think we can move the fence, and we're sitting right here. Yeah, we could walk out the door almost and go see it if you walk up in 1900. But they said, we're gonna move the fence back from 1900 west, and we're gonna move it back toward the runway. And there's 550 acres here along the freeway that we're not using. We could lease that ground to a private company. And if we lease that ground to a private company, we could pay for our military new office space. That's a real private sector way not to have us pay our taxes, but to be able to have government pay for themselves. I think it's really innovative. And so they called it an enhanced use lease. Basically what it is a land lease. So they had to go through a very competitive process. There were multiple companies bid on it. Boyer bid, Woodbury bid, a lot of companies bid. The actual winner of the enhanced use lease bid was a company, Woodbury, who's a local company in Hunt in Texas. And so they moved the fence back. But the challenge was when they moved the fence back, that 550 acres went from Riverdale to Clearfield. And Clearfield was ready to annex that. And Roy was ready to annex it. And Riverdale wanted it. And Sunset complained because we're such a small city, we don't get anything. And they wanted to annex it. And there was a real battle between Clearfield, Sunset, Riverdale, and Roy. And then there was even more complexity. It sits in two counties, Davis County and Weber County. And how do you manage a project when it sits in 4 municipalities and 2 counties? And then another complexity. The land use lease, we were told by the federal government, that money goes back into the Department of Defense. And when it goes to the Department of Defense, who spends that money? Congress spends it. And in order to keep that money locally from the land use lease that they were proposing, there had to be a state agency. And that state agency was formed by request of the federal government so that that money could stay locally in Utah. That agency was the Military Installation Development Authority. And because this property sat in so many jurisdictions, they gave it land use authority. And look at the great things that it's done. You have the entire, and this is pretty amazing, we still have nuclear defense systems in America that defend us against horrible threats from around the world. Part of that nuclear defense is in the air. We have planes flying around with nuclear weapons. Part of it's in the sea. We have submarines with nuclear weapons in it. And part of it's in the land. The entire land-based nuclear defense system moved to Hill Air Force Base. And if you drive over to 5600 South, drive up 5600 South and look at the Roy Gate, there are 4 new buildings there. They won't tell me what they do in them. They won't even tell me how many employees they have in them, but I can count 4,000 parking stalls. 4,000 new employees working there, defending our the entire land-based missile defense system for the United States. In addition to that, there's a brand new IT building, and that IT building, I've been in it. They turn a blue light on because I don't have clearances. When I walk in it, they're working to try with these F-35 pilots to increase and make the cockpit and the other things in the plane fly better. A really big IT center that now is part of Lockheed Martin in Utah. In addition to that, we replaced the police department in Hill Air Force Base, the Security Forces building. MIDA has, there's no other agency that could have done that. 6,000 new jobs, millions of dollars in new contracts. And then the most important thing is, it BRAC-proofs Hill Air Force Base. It is so important now to have the entire land-based missile defense system here in Utah. It will never close. I'm really proud. That's why I have 4 retired generals supporting my campaign, because they know that nobody's done more to protect Hill Air Force Base and protect the economic validity of this area than I have. And I'm proud of that record, and it's a great thing. It's one of the great things I've been able to accomplish as a legislator.
Thank you, Senator Adams. Any other responses?
So I want to kind of try to address all 3 of those questions. I want to start by acknowledging the original goal of MIDA to help Hill Air Force Base, and economic development was also part of the original goal. And I want to make sure that we're clear, we want to protect Hill Air Force Base. What I'm challenged to understand is how we've become this, how MIDA has gone from what it was to what it has become at this point. I also want to reiterate what has already been said up here as well about the balance of powers. Our Constitution has a separation of powers, and there's supposed to be 3 equal branches of government set to keep each other in check. And we've lost that in Utah. And we're seeing the example of it right here with MIDA, where what we're seeing is an entity that has grown so big and has so many tentacles that to unravel it will be challenging. But also we're seeing that it's able to override land use decisions. We're seeing that it's able to give developers benefits that a normal an entity wouldn't, and even that MIDA doesn't normally give. For the Box Elder data center, there's an energy tax benefit or tax that is usually 6%, and that was reduced to 0.5% for this project. And who is it that gets to make that call? It's MIDA. MIDA is the one who's driving that forward. But then also, where is the oversight from the legislature? And one of the things I'm challenged to understand now is, am I speaking with President Adams, the state Senate president, or the chair of the board of MIDA? Because there's 2 hats that are being served right there. And it seems to me like it's a little bit of a matter of a fox guarding the hen house if the people who are holding responsible the MIDA are the people who are forming MIDA and making the laws. If MIDA has a decision that it wants to make or a change to law that it wants to make, we've seen this happen. They go to the legislature, but wait, they are the legislature. There's cleanup that needs to happen with this entity.
Anything in response to the 3
I'd love
questions?
to try to hit up all 3 of them. So I believe that the original intent of MIDA it's really lost its original intent. It's bloated to the point where it's not quite recognizable to its original intent. I'd love to see this and many other extra governmental entities eliminated. I believe in federal government, state government, local governments, not in any other sort of capacity of governments. When it comes to referendums, I stated this already, I'm not a fan of referendums, ballot initiatives, anything that the people directly enact laws. And I would say this whether or not I'm running for office. I've believed this for years and years, and even if I'm not elected, I will still tout this. And the reason why is not because the people are stupid, it's a matter of the people often don't have the time or the resources to dive into the issues as extensively as our elected representatives. If anything, running this campaign, I've learned exactly how much I really don't know. So, and I've spent a lot of time trying to educate myself on these issues. For the general public to make decisions as important as these, they would need to spend a lot of time in order to make it a really educated decision on these important issues. So fundamentally, I'm against those measures. I believe in a system of a representative government where we elect people to act for us and they implement laws, not the people directly. We're not Switzerland, we are America. And when it comes to the balance of powers and the massive numbers of commissions and boards, I am not a fan of creating a commission or a board for every little purpose or project out there. I believe in a limited government where the people can actually understand the purpose behind every commission and every board, and in many respects, not just on the federal level where it's expanded beyond recognition, the state as well has done so. I'd like to see us consolidate a lot of our boards, commissions, to the point where the people can understand in a simple way exactly what their purposes are. But inevitably, when it comes to government, what happens is we give it a lane and then it becomes bloated, and then they change lanes and it evolves into something that we didn't actually intend. I'm a big fan of Thomas Jefferson and his stance on the judiciary. I believe it's playing a role that it was never really intended to play. Stemming all the way back to Marbury versus Madison with judicial review. When it comes to a particular issue, the judiciary is supposed to adjudicate that one issue, not legislate from the bench and have it applied to the entire country or the entire state, where these judges are not actually elected representatives. Our system in Utah is not perfect, but it's run a whole lot better than the federal government. And it's because the legislature, who the power is divided amongst so many, have the power to enact the laws, and they're actually passing laws. On the federal level, what we see is Congress is not passing laws very often, and when they do, it's ginormous bills no one has time to read. And then there are lots of gaps, and then it's the executive branch tries to fill in those holes, and when they don't, or when they get sued, it goes to the judiciary, who then tries to legislate from the bench. And I don't agree with that system. I prefer the Utah way because we actually get things done. And if we don't like the way it's being done, unelect who you elected before. That's a great system. It's not perfect, by any means it's not perfect, but compared to what we've got surrounding us and at the federal level, so much better.
So,
Thank you, Braden.
chance for a little rebuttal? Maybe
Yes, please, if you keep it short.
And again, Braden and I have had a lot of discussions, and I actually like talking to him because he has a lot of different policy ideas, and I'd love to talk policy and understand that's why Utah is so great, because we're able to talk through a lot of ideas. But one thing I would like to clarify a little bit, and again, MIDA, if you look at its authority, doesn't have the authority to go anywhere in the state of Utah. Has no authority to go to Box Elder County, has no authority to go to Wasatch County, only if the local authority lets them in. That's why Box Elder County had to act, that's why Wasatch County act, that's why we have the mayor of Clearfield and Roy on the local MIDA board here. It's because those local entities need to invite us in. They put up a development review authority. Every city has input on everything MIDA does. So they're really an extension of that local government, but they're able to do more. So there is one, when you say MIDA's lost its way, because MIDA was wildly successful, Clearfield, Roy, Sunset, and Riverdale, they all said it's been such a great thing for us. Davis and Weber County said it's been a great thing for us.